And if it's Thursday, then it's fishing and hunting today. And I'm your studio producer, Sid Davis. And I have none other than the pleasure of introducing one of the best in the game, one of the Hall of Famers in the radio game. And that would be none other than Mr. Jerry Crick, along with one of our guests today, Mr. Mike Patterson from Mike Patterson Sport Fishing. How you guys doing today?
Good, Sydney. How are you, bud?
I'm doing pretty good.
Good. And how about you, Mike? You're hanging in there.
I'm doing great.
What part of the country are you in? Are you up home or are you down in Florida?
I just got back to Ohio. I was down in Florida for the opener of snapper and grouper season, and we just got home a couple days ago.
How did that go this year? Pretty good?
Oh, yeah. It was a brutal amount of work, but we caught some big fish, so it was good.
How does that go? I know clients, if they come, and we'll mention that before we let you go this evening so people know not only how to get a hold of you, but I don't think a lot of people realize when they come down and deep sea fish or offshore fish, whatever you want to call it, that they don't need a license. They work off the captain's license, don't they?
Correct. The boat or the captain himself holds a license that's good for the passengers. So Florida's really good about promoting tourism, obviously. That's their main income, so it really makes it nice. Guys don't have to worry about getting a $65 out-of-state license.
Well, I think they're good. They realize the importance, kind of like tourism too, Mike, but I think they realize how important fishing is to the state of Florida. People come down here, a lot of people, not only saltwater, but freshwater fish too. So they realize it's really important to that state. There's no question about that. And how are you as far as with limits with what you catch with fish, like grouper, for example? Is it done on a pound basis or on a fish basis? How's that set up?
So a fish basis, you're allowed 4 groupers a day per person in aggregate. So you're only allowed certain amounts, like 1 gag, 2 reds. We really like to focus on the deep water grouper, the scamp, the snowies, the yellowheads. They're the best eating by far, and you're allowed a combination of any 4 of those.
Okay. So there's no weight limit or anything, or a length limit or anything like that. It's just number of...
4 fish aggregate for your grouper, and they've got, like I said, some of them are condensed down. Like if you would happen to luck into a Warsaw, you're technically only allowed 1 of those, but good luck finding more than 1 of those. So, but no, there's minimum length limit. Gags have to be 24 inches. The reds have to be 20 inches. The scamps have to be 15. But as far as the maximum, they're just 4 fish total.
Are you running out of Destin for this?
Yeah, we were. There's 2 areas that are really good for the deep groupers of the North Panhandle there, and both of them are about 80 miles out of Destin. One would be called the Elbow, or the sometimes call it the Shelf, but both places are where it just works out good that there's a real steep drop-off between 200 and 400 foot that makes a real nice shelf along there, perfect habitat for the grouper. So.
A lot of boats out there probably, isn't there?
No, well, there's a lot of boats closer. There's the same kind of shelf at 30 and 40 miles where a lot of boats fish. Those 70 to 90 mile areas that we fish, we go because some days you don't see anybody at all. That's why there's so many fish out there.
Good way to go. So you're running a round trip, almost 180 miles, 70 miles?
Yeah, it depends on how much bouncing around you do. I'll log 200 miles in a day. If like this last trip, I was searching new spots. I just was going off the map and locating new spots for later in the year, and found a bunch of them. It was good.
Now, what do you get per mile as far as your fuel usage? What you don't get, it burns pretty quick, doesn't it?
Yeah, I get 1.5 if I'm just running and deep dropping. If you stop and do any trolling, it really takes your miles per gallon average down. It's about 1.3. Because when we're trolling down there, we're running about 8 miles an hour. So you both.
It takes you close to a gallon just to go a mile, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yep.
And thanks to
boat holds 240 gallons, so
Well, now thanks to Mr. Biden now, how much is a gallon of fuel going to run you down there?
I think at the dock it was $4.50 still. It hadn't gone up as bad as I thought it would have. But the regular pump gas down there is $3.25.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And we were rocking and rolling at, what, $1.80?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was, it definitely changes the game a little bit in terms of, that's why a lot of the guys that do the long-range tuna trips and stuff out of Venice, they get so much per hour for the day plus whatever fuel cost you're using. You put your credit card in at the pump and you go back and pay for the fuel.
Makes it easier, that's for sure. How is it? Have you seen any effect, Mike, as far as with charter guys as this fuel continues to go up? And I don't see it going to go anywhere in the near future down. Have you seen people going out of the business already?
I haven't yet. I have not yet. It's so far everybody's still spending money. Everybody's busy.
Yep.
I think we've got a reckoning coming. I mean, we do one way or the other. I don't know what it's going to look like, but to think that everything's just going to stay happy, rosy, and keep just going on the way it has been with the things that are happening, I just can't. It doesn't make mathematical sense.
Well, the scary thing is, too, I have no clue. I mean, you try and figure this stock market out. My God, I have no interest, no idea, of what they're going on to make this market do what it's doing now. We mean by that, it'll go down a couple, like I think down a couple 100 points again today. Its level will be back up 300 or 400 or 500 points tomorrow. What the driving force is, because there's a lot of people that are back to work yet because it's true. I mean, they get more money to stay home, and, they got a taste of that free money. They're not going to go anywhere. So that's a factor. And you've got businesses that can't get help, and you can't get help, you can't be open, you're out of business. And we haven't seen the foreclosures come. There's 4 million plus foreclosures now on houses, or single-family houses in the country right now that are being processed. 4 million foreclosures. Haven't seen anything yet about the foreclosures in commercial property. Wait till we see that. That's going to be unbelievable. It's going to be unbelievable. These companies are not going back to their office space. They're working remote, and it's not going to change. So what's driving that? I have no idea. What drives that? Drives people spending money, and drives people to be able to go on a trip. Florida. Thank goodness Florida's pretty well stayed open. So you guys, you really closed up down there that much at all. You were open all year. I mean, through this pandemic, to do charters, I'm assuming, weren't you?
Yeah, no, it's been really fortunate down there. DeSantis is a heck of a good governor. He managed things really well down there. Now, it's funny how many times I've seen people put posts on Facebook after they've come down to the Destin area and said that it was unbelievable. I felt so relieved to go somewhere where people weren't wearing masks. They were smiling and no one was worried about anything.
Oh, God. Well, I'll tell you what, just Delta variant now. Who knows? And where there's one, there'll be more. You know that. So we'll see. But it's not been good. And there's estimates, too. I mean, there's 600,000 people passed from this year, I think, in the U.S. Unbelievable. Worldwide, 3 to 4. But there's some that are saying the worldwide totals that people have died from this thing may be closer to 10 to 12 million.
It wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, I don't want to get too far down rabbit holes here, but the guys pushing all this stuff that are involved in it are eugenists that believe the world's overpopulated. So there's a whole lot of crazy going on out there, that's for sure.
You really don't think that they'd like to kick off a few, do you?
Yeah. I tell you what, whenever I get somebody telling me I need to take their vaccine, that they've been stated publicly the number one problem in the world is human overpopulation, I get real curious about what it is they want me to take.
That's a good way to look at it, Bud. It's a great way to look at it. Well, I was finding out more about kids with it, too, and I know you weren't thrilled about doing your kids, but schools going to make them this fall? That'll be something to watch.
Not around us. No, see, we live in a, here in the Midwest, whether you're in Florida or here in Ohio, we've got a pretty conservative mindset about individual liberties. Now, when I talk to people that come from areas like New Jersey or New York or up Maine and that way, I'm really surprised when I hear what the overall average mindset is. It's a lot different than it is here. So,
well, you got to factor in the crazies out there in California. That's a different world entirely out there, and you know what their thoughts are. So, we're sort of on our own here on this little island in the Midwest, aren't we?
I'd like to keep it that way. Just leave them out where they're at.
I guarantee you, they're scheming now ways to drain the Great Lakes so they've got water out there because they're seriously coming into water shortages out there. They've tried it before. They're going to try and get this Great Lakes water somehow again. You watch. Got Biden in power. They'll try it again, Mike. You watch.
Oh, yeah. They're going to try to pull out. I'm just, I hate to get too far down this political road, but I'm just trying to figure out what everybody was thinking was going to be so good about this change here. But so far, it's not too hot.
I know. Well, politicking now is so much of all this stuff. It's just unbelievable. But things to watch are the Great Lakes. There's no question about that. Those cannot be touched, period. There's just no way. We're not going to... There's just no way that could happen. Absolutely, positively no way that could happen. Are you seeing that, too, with people when you are in Florida? Are you seeing people, I know you get a lot of people from up in the Midwest come down and fish with you. Are you seeing other people like from Minnesota and states like that are in Florida now or this summer?
Yes, yeah, a lot of people from Minnesota, Wisconsin, all through the Midwest, really. It's such it's up in the Panhandle where I'm at in Destin there. It's such a drive-to destination. It gets a great mix. I mean, you see people from anywhere, Tennessee, Arkansas. It's actually quite a bunch of people from Texas come over to Destin. They don't like hanging out at their own beach because they call it Old Dirty Water down there at Galveston. And Destin has the beautiful blue beaches, so there's a huge amount of wealthy people from East Texas that come over and. Being that it's, almost anywhere in the Midwest, you're only 12 hours drive. Being a drive-to destination, you see a great deal of variety of people.
Oh, good. And you get a good, and your clientele, too. You got good repeat business, too, don't you?
Yeah. Once they find somebody they like to fish with, they just want to keep coming back.
Now, what is your next trip down? What will you, are you planning on going down, like, soon, or is it going to be a while before you get back down that way? And when you do, what will be the next fish that you're going to be targeting summertime fishing down there?
I'll be down there for the last 2 weeks of July while snapper and grouper season is still in. That's a big draw a lot of times. We like to catch the first 10 days of season and try to get a month's worth total out of the snapper and grouper because everybody likes to eat. They're great eating. It's summertime, so guys like to plan to come because they can bring their wife and kids and they can be on the beach. The beach season's full swing, so it just works out real good for a total vacation for everybody. Once you get past into the 1st of August, snapper and grouper goes out of season, so it gets a little trickier. I shouldn't say all the grouper. The snapper season goes out. We can still catch our deep water groupers. That's what we rely on later in the season, August, September, October. We go fish 400, 500, 600 feet of water for yellow edge groupers, scamps, snowies. By late summer, then the pelagics are starting to show up in good numbers. The mahi, if you want to go try for tuna, marlin, things like that.
Well, there's no question it's a year-round fishery for sure, but you can really target different species different times of year, and that causes more the people to come back down and say, well, we tried grouper, now we'll go back down and try marlin, or whatever the case may be. I think it's good to be able to do that, too. No question about that. Now, you're up there in Destin. You never really did have any issue with any of this red algae at all up that way, did you?
Not this last year. The year before, we had a bout with it for about a month.
You did?
Yeah, we did. And not usually up there, but we did. Not last summer, the summer before.
Okay.
It it hung around for about a month, and it's a nuisance in the way that let's say you catch your bait fish and you're not far enough out before you're out of the red algae. That red algae is on top. So as soon as you put them in the live well, that water you're sucking in just kills them. So it's a real pain to, you got to go 4 to 7 miles offshore to catch your bait fish just so you're out of the red algae so you can keep your bait fish alive.
Whoa. Now, is that on both shores, east and west coast, then, or both coasts?
I think it's just the Gulf Coast mostly is the biggest problem.
Okay. And as you go south, it gets worse, doesn't it?
Yeah, the whole problem down in the Everglades with that's typically what you contribute to the biggest mess. Kind of like our algae up here at Lake Erie, you got all this runoff from the dredging and so forth, and that's really bad down there. I'm not sure why we ended up getting all the trouble up here in the Panhandle. I think it had something to do with the flooding from the hurricane and the flooding from the Mississippi and all that. We had all kinds of extra nutrients up in the northern part of the Gulf there.
Well, I know they were trying to put a lot of that down there further from where you are, down there on the Gulf Coast on Okeechobee. Drainage from that may have been part of that problem. You feel that Okeechobee is part of that?
That's what I mean, yeah, that drainage, they say Okeechobee coming down through the Everglades. That's why it should be, if you think about down there where that comes out at Cape Coral, Punta Gorda, just north of where the Everglades comes out. And that's typically where you see a big flare-up. But, we're 500 miles north of there, up in the Panhandle.
Yep.
The general current doesn't come upward, so I really think it's more of the stuff that was coming out of the Mississippi River, and we had all that trouble from the hurricane flooding things, and all that mess is where I kind of think that's where the nutrient came from.
I hear, too, aren't they doing rooster fish down there somewhere, too, down in Florida?
None that I've seen. I haven't seen any rooster fish. We get here in July, there's a big run of tarpon that comes down the beaches, and I just actually bought a boat that I'm setting up to do that kind of fishing for next year. You got to go down the shoreline and find and sight fishing.
Do you do any freshwater fishing at all, Mike?
Just up here on Lake Erie. When I get to Florida, that saltwater has got my attention.
There you go. Oh, good for you. And how about bonefish? You ever get into them? Not for maybe so much just for your clients, but just a little bit of that for yourself?
Which kind of fish?
Bonefish?
Oh, bonefish, no. We play with them a little bit if we go out to the Bahamas or if we're down in Biscayne Bay, down by the Keys. But most of the time, there's something around. I'm such a hunter-gatherer, I guess. Everything I try to figure out what is the best eating thing, and I try to go kill it.
If you're going to go do it, you might as well eat what you go do, right?
Well, my wife is waiting at home for me. We're going to have fresh red snapper tonight and sit out by the campfire. So.
Are you going to get any better? There's not much to get any better than that. That's for sure. No question about that. That's for sure. Well, you're back up here now, and how did you fish Lake Erie prior to going south? Did you fish it much at all?
Yeah, we were casting spinners with good numbers. The casting bite's really good this year because we've just got tons and tons of fish. There's still fish scattered around North Bass between the Bass Islands and Kelly's, and pretty easy fishing until this week. The mayfly started kicking into gear, so you got to contend with them a little bit in the western basin now over by Vermilion and Cleveland, where my buddies are trolling. They're doing pretty good without any bother of the mayflies.
Well, once the mayflies start, it really gets tough to catch these fish, doesn't it?
It can. I mean, you can have a day where the flies are all over and the fish are still feeding like crazy, and the next day it's like they got lockjaw. You know what they're doing. They're just eating all those larvae coming up. But, it's a good thing. I mean, everybody asked me if you had to put a pinpoint on why our walleye population is so good, just look at the food chain. I mean, those small fish that are hatching, they've got such a food source of all these bugs in the water that they can feed on all summer long. We still got tons of shad and tons of shiners, and the perch are kind of suffering, I think, because of the overpopulation of walleye. But yeah.
Well, there's a perch issue in the Central Basin. Are you starting to see maybe an issue coming up on the perch with the Western Basin perch?
On big fish, yeah. The last couple of years, I don't know if it's numbers. I don't know if it's numbers or if it's just a change in what the fish are eating. Now we've got these, we call them sand fleas. They're freshwater shrimp that the perch are really eating on. Mm-hmm. And once they keep in on those, it's really hard to get them to eat minnows. And so I don't know that we have a population problem as much as they've changed the forage problem. Because the last couple of years in July, we'd get 2 weeks where the perch are really firing up. We're like, good, it's going to be an early perch season. And then August hits, and boom, they shut right down. And every one you catch is just puking up tons and tons of those little freshwater shrimp. And I know up in the northern Michigan lakes, like Ojibik, where you get the big perch, it's the same thing. You got to have wigglers or something that matches that forage base that they're after, because they just won't eat minnows because they're so full they don't need anything else, and they like what they're eating. So.
Oh, interesting. Good point. What about bait? Do you do your catch your own bait, or are you buying bait?
For me, I buy bait.
Are you having any issues with bait? No shortages or anything?
No, I haven't noticed any trouble with that. The shiners always, it seems like there's plenty of shiners all year until you want to go perch fishing, and no one seems to want to catch any shiners. But I don't know why that always seems to happen.
I heard that one year up, that's the reason I asked about bait, because I know that one year up there they had an issue with bait fish coming from Canada coming over. And I was just curious if you were seeing any issues this year, similar to maybe something like that happened back then, but good to hear, that's for sure.
Come October when we want to perch fish, you watch, it'll be a shortage of shiners.
yeah, that's the way it works. There's no question about that. Now, what's the average now with you going out with a full boat? How long does it take you to come back already limited out with all these fish up there?
I'd say an average day would be 3 to 4 hours.
Wow. Are you doing 2 trailers, or you're just doing one?
Just been doing one, just because I've been scheduling with the travel back and forth. I haven't been scheduling too heavy. So.
3 to 4 hours to limit that. Now, how many fish do you have to call to get to the right size?
Well, it depends where you're fishing. Early in the year, now at the end of April there when we were jigging, I wasn't catching any small fish. They were all nice. And now that you're getting into throwing harnesses or trolling, whichever the case may be, we're starting to see a lot of, I wouldn't say a lot, but maybe a third of them are short right there in the Western Basin. So there's lots of young ones coming out. Yeah.
It's just good stage. There's for sure you want to see different sizes. You want to see stage fish. No question about that. But you have to call a third of what you're catching to get to your keepers. Find out a little unusual this time of year or not?
No, well, last year it was worse. Last year you catch 3 little ones to catch a keeper because there were so many. But now you got a lot of these that were short last year that are 16, 17 inches this year. We had a couple big hatches, and it's this time of year when they show up in forest. It's in the Western Basin in particular, around the islands. It's normal to see after you've had a couple good hatches.
Well, these hatches are phenomenal every year anymore, aren't they?
That's what it's looking like. And that's why a lot of guys, they travel down to Lorraine now, or Canada, or Ashtabula. You get down that way. Although last year there were so many young ones in the lake, it was the same down there. You had to clear your spoons every 30 minutes just to make sure there wasn't a small one dragging, because they wouldn't pull the boards back, So.
Wow. So clients are happy. Now, next question, when are we going to go up the limit up there? Do you think we'll ever up the limit? Maybe just 7 or not? What do you think?
Well, I doubt it. The last time they did that, back in the 80s when it went up to 10, and they wiped the fish down pretty fast. So my understanding is they made it a rule that they cannot raise the limit above 6 without the state making constitutional amendment, if you will. The DNR can't just say, okay, we're going to raise this up. The lawmakers, the Senate and whatever would have to vote on it. They did that as a protective measure to keep from too rapidly over-harvesting the resources.
So that's probably never going to happen, is it?
I doubt it. But they, this spring they didn't, instead of, as long as I can remember now, we've had a limit of 4 during the spring, and this year they left it 6 through the whole spring season. So,
which was, I don't know, did you think that was unusual for them to do that? Because it's been so long the way it was. And I saw that, and I thought, well, now maybe they're thinking about it as we get into the regular open water season, that they might up this a little bit. They didn't do that. That's because of the legislature, like you mentioned. But I'm wondering if they'll do that for ice fishing season to get more people to come if we get some ice, because we haven't really had any ice fishing season up there for a while. Get a bigger bag limit, get some people to come back and enjoy it.
They'll leave it 6 all the way through, I'm sure. Yeah. The one thing different now than what used to be, I believe we harvest a lot more fish than we ever used to. Mm-hmm. If you look at the army of 20-foot walleye boats now, that was not a thing 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. It used to always be sport crafts and runabouts and whatever, but little aluminum boats and so forth. That's a fairly new deal, and those people are fishing clear up until it freezes in December or whenever. And it used to be everyone put their boats away in September or October. So now you've got guys catching fish and keeping fish at least 3 to 4 months of the year than what was traditional, 15, 20 years ago.
That's quite a difference, isn't it? Quite a change.
If you look at the amount of fish coming down the conveyors at the cleaner houses, we harvest a tremendous. It's really almost mind-boggling how many fish we harvest, and that lake is still producing it. It's almost. If you tried to explain this to a guy from northern Minnesota, they're like, "No, you're going to kill your lake in a year." They just can't understand it.
Well, it's a phenomenal fishery, that Western Basin. I'm telling you, there's no question about it. It is truly the incubator for game fish. I think the Great Lakes, for Lake Erie for sure, but I think it's more than Lake Erie. I really do. It is, like you said, mind-boggling. It's absolutely phenomenal. And you can just see, like you did at the cleaning house, that number of fish. That sort of makes you think, my God, how do we keep doing this? And it keeps getting better, and it does. It's fantastic.
I tell people you can't outdo God. You try to figure out a stocking program or something, and it just never quite does what a real good natural thing can do. So
it's true. I tell you, the concern, Mike, that I have a little bit, and I think fish biologists do. They don't want to say much about it, but I do think it is going to be a concern as you go down the road. And I think you're going to have such an abundance of game fish in there. I mean, that largemouth population is really phenomenal. Smallies are picking up again, better than they've been for a while. Perch is on a decline in the Western Basin, but who knows what will happen with them. We know what the walleye is. We're bringing in some other exotics, what I call them. People are catching muskie up there once in a while, catching a pike once in a while. They introduce striper where? In the central, not striper, but lake trout, I think, in the Central Basin. The concern is all of these game fish eating themselves out of house and home. And then when you start getting no forage fish, then you start having less game fish. Now, to me, I don't see how they don't think with the game fish populations that this forage fish population has got to be of a concern. Now it's great. And they don't winter over, but when you have mild winters, if you give them mild winter, they'll live. They'll survive those. Gizzard shad won't, but you don't have any gizzard shad up there anyway. I think it's important north for gizzard shad. But I think it's a concern. What do you think? Can they eat themselves out of house and home?
We've talked about it off and on for a long time. I mean, I don't know. Back to the bugs. If you look at all the different stages of the food chain, the walleyes are more than happy to eat these mayflies for a month and a half straight. And And so is all the other little fish. I mean, you talk about all the little food chain fish. They're all eating those same bugs too. And it's not just mayflies. You've got midgies and all this other stuff. And all the fish in the lake, you know, a couple months of the year, they're eating 100% protein just off the bugs, not even bothering the bait fish supply. So I don't know how to answer it. I'm not the smart guy that studies that to say, hey, you got so many pounds of this forage that this stuff can hold. I really don't know.
Is there any concern with you guys, as far as charter guys, with your association, about the perch issue in the Western? Because I think didn't they lower the bag for East of Huron again? For Eastern Basin, I mean for the Central?
Yes. Central Basin they did. Yeah, there's concern. There's definitely concern. And everybody's got their own opinions on what it is. I mean, we know that the reproduction in the Central Basin hasn't been good. For me, I see the commercial nets down there where we used to catch fish all the time. And everybody says, well, they've got a quota. And I say, well, that's fine, but if you are looking at an area that's lined with nets in places that they didn't used to net that much, and here we are 10, 12 years down the road since they've been catching those big perch down there in the Central Basin netting, that I've noticed in the East where there's all these nets piled up where I used to catch fish, and now I don't catch fish. I just wonder. It's like, okay. You know, them trout nets catch a lot of fish in a hurry.
Good point. What about Canada with perch quota? Do they have a perch quota for the Western Basin?
Yeah, they do. I don't know. There's always a big gray area there on what gets followed for their quota, and you know, every time you buy something in the store that says Canadian walleye, all that is a Lake Erie walleye that swam across the border and got stuck in a gill net.
That's it. No question about that.
Yeah,
at least the one that got stuck in the gill net, Mike, at least it got to a grocery store for somebody to enjoy it instead of going to the garbage heap, you know?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And, I don't know. It's, you know, they always talk about these quotas that we have, but I don't know who's policing that. When you try to get down to the nitty-gritty, they just always say, oh, well, it's a state-run, you know, the fisheries thing up there is owned by the government, and they keep track of their quotas because they know how many pounds are coming through. And I say, you trust that? You trust the people that own the permits to police themselves? Okay.
So there is concern for perch in the Western Basin. Fall will be a telltale sign then, I'm thinking, because a lot of people enjoy coming up for a fall perch trip. Do you do fall perch dives trips?
I didn't last year just because of the trouble we had catching them, and I don't know that I'm going to. I always have traditionally, but it's been so disappointing for a few years until I figure out that I can catch them. I'm not going to push that.
I agree. I think you're doing the right thing. And then plus, I don't know too. But see, there's people that are dedicated perch fishermen. I mean, they'll take one perch to 10 walleye. You know how they are. That's the way they are.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of new people coming to the sport of fishing. They see that big walleye next to that little 12-inch perch, and they think, I'll go for the big walleye. I think that with new people, I think they just as soon catch walleye than go out and do a perch trip. The other ones, I'm going to say your 50-plussers, the age group or older, if they're going to go for perch, they don't care about that walleye. So if that group goes away or hangs up their fishing rod, although you can fish longer than you can hunt, for a lot of them, and, you know, our hunting population is growing older, too. The driving part of it is because that's the 60-plus crowd that's got the money. They're the ones that keep it going. But you'll see people, as they get closer to that, I think you'll see perch become more of a second type of thought than it is now for a lot of people with making the walleye overall the number one fish to go catch. But you don't want to see a population of that great little fish go away, do you? There's no way.
No, for me, I'd rather eat. I'd rather have perch than walleye to eat myself.
Mm-hmm.
The whole time growing up, my dad was always the same way. I'm in that group with the over 50 guys who would rather perch fish.
They're wrong.
It's just and I'm still trying to figure it out. I think we have plenty of fish in the Western Basin, back to this problem with how to get them to bite. I'm going to start experimenting, seeing if I go buy wigglers, will they bite that versus minnows, or what's the game now? So.
What about the largemouth? Have you had people want to go largemouth fishing with you at all, or have you largemouth fished yourself up there lately?
I have myself. I took my daughter, and we like to do it. I have not had any customers that wanted to. The smallmouth fishing people want to do periodically. I'll tell you what the biggest untold story is on Lake Erie, and there are a couple guys starting to do it in Sandusky Bay now, is the catfish. Holy cow, it's world-class catfish fishing, and most people don't even think about it because we're the walleye place. But you can catch conservatively, if you wanted to go on a 6-hour trip, you could conservatively catch 20 to 30 catfish, with some of them ranging in that 30-inch range without trying real hard.
All channel cats?
All channel cats, yeah.
Interesting. What about the tournament pressure up there? Is there a lot, or is there less now since the virus has been around?
There's still quite a few guys bass fishing. I think people are so stir crazy to want to do something. The fishing hasn't slowed down. That's something they can get outside and do, and feel normal a little bit. So.
Well, that's true. I mean, we thank God that we've had people being able to. I think we talked about this when we had you on. There were 87,000 people in the state of Ohio sign up for the hunting draws. Most they've ever had last year sign up for the draw hunts. And that was people, I think, that were out of work, laid off, whatever the case may be, looking for something to do, and they said, well, let's go try hunting. So I think we picked up some new hunters there. And then we look at the turkey permits, and the turkey permits were down. When we look at the turkey numbers were down. So the least amount of permits for turkey hunting here in Ohio this season since 1999. That's quite a while ago, 22 years ago. So that tells me that these people that were laid off went back to work. That's probably part of that, I would think. And then we only took 14,000 birds.
Yeah. I know on the lake last year, you could tell everybody was laid off and making money because there was more boats throughout the week than I've ever seen up there. Mm-hmm. That army of 19 to 20-foot boats. They weren't sitting home being bored waiting for COVID not to get them. They were on the lake catching fish.
Well, what the heck? You had $900 a week. Is it $900 a week that they had in gas money? You might as well do something with it, you think?
Oh, I'm serious. I've never seen nothing like it. It was an incredible amount of people all through the week fishing every day.
So how about on the hunting side? Because I know you enjoy a little waterfowl hunting. Was it crowded more so than usual?
Yes. Yeah, there was more guys. And it was bad because we didn't have the birds down because it was a funny thing. So we found out something. All these birds that love to come down to Lake St. Clair, stay over there on the Canadian side in Mitchell's Bay, perfect habitat for them. Well, when us Americans don't go up there and hunt, the Canadians don't hunt those birds. We do. We couldn't go across and hunt because those birds never got pushed off. There was gazillions of birds just wrapped up at Mitchell's Bay, and they never got pushed down here, so we didn't have birds almost the entire season.
That's going to happen again, too. That's happened before with canvasbacks. I forget. I'm thinking it was the year of Sandy, that storm. I think it was that year. That winter was fairly mild, and there was canvasbacks up there that wrapped it up there, and they spent the winter up there on St. Clair. They didn't even migrate any further than St. Clair. And I'm sure that
they got the water there.
Well, I'm sure that birds that were there last winter that you're talking about, that was probably across the board. You pick a species, and they probably were all up there, weren't they?
Oh, yeah. I saw some pictures some guys took, and it was pretty impressive.
Well, now, we didn't have any, we still can't get in Canada, and we're rolling, the spring bear season's done. That's over with. We're not going to do that. And I was just talking to Mark Cluding. He owns Mountain View Camp. Last week, I think it was, we were talking, and I asked him, I said, what are you thinking? I mean, he's up there. He's got a camp, a fishing and hunting camp, Look at how many people up there since March of last year, 20. They're going, 15 months now? Shut down. And last he heard, and this is nothing official, he said the last he heard, maybe August 1st, Canada opens up. But he said they said maybe May, and they never did that. So who knows? So you're going into all of that waterfowl season up there again. Starts in September. There's nobody going to be up there again. You're going to have the same problem again this year as you had last year.
You're hitting on another side note from them being so shut down. I would say, I've got a couple of friends up there that are outfitters that think as much as 80% or more of the outfitters may be permanently out of business because their government hasn't done anything to help them.
No, I know. Well, here's another thing, too. What about you couldn't even, if you owned a cabin up there, you couldn't even go up and check on your property. So you had to have, hopefully, somebody you could trust to check on your property, or good luck, because the next time you see it, it's liable to be burnt to the ground or at least empty, nothing in it, one of the two. I don't see how you can do that. I don't see how you can keep people from going and checking at least on their property if they don't have anybody up there looking to it for them. That don't make sense to me. It's crazy.
Yep. That's a different way of political thinking, yeah.
That's a crazy, look at that government up there, and Trudeau, he's he'll be in power up there forever. So God only knows what's going on.
It just takes a couple big cities that have the population to keep them in office. So, yeah.
That's it. You're absolutely right. And your guys, talking about 80%, ain't no shame. You look at 80% of the guide business shot up there and maybe not being able to go back in business. It's totally unbelievable. 80%.
Yeah,
and all the shows are canceled.
Yeah, all those guys are month to month, and they've been 2 years with no income. They can't do it.
There's no way. And the shows that they go to, that big All Canada show in Chicago, that's canceled again. And all these sports travel shows, they're canceled. Those people that put those kind of shows on, they're in bad shape too. Yeah. Oh my God! If I got no show, I got no way to pay any of our bills. So they're in tough shape, and that's going to be a while before you see those come back. Ohio State Fair's canceled already. I think did you know that?
No, I hadn't heard that yet.
They canceled that 2 or 3 months ago.
Oh.
Now I'm wondering if they'll come back and not cancel it because the wine opens the state up. I'm assuming the 2nd of June. So maybe they'll be back. Who knows? In the restaurant, it goes on and on, Mike. I'll tell you. Here we get on all this other stuff instead of talking about fishing. We got to throw a little bit of fishing talk in too. But really, in a way, hunting and fishing go together. No question about that. And all of this other stuff going on affects hunting and fishing. That's for sure. No question about it. What's your outlook up there weather-wise as we go into the next week or so? Are you hot, cold, or wet or dry?
A little bit of everything. They got rain scheduled about every other day, and to pop up thunderstorms because of the heat. So we'll have a couple cool days, but a lot of the warm days are supposed to bring in some rain with it.
So outlook-wise, fishing-wise is good. A little chop on the lake, a little cloud, or a little overcast always works out well, doesn't it?
Yeah, especially for the walleyes, especially if you like drifting. Yep.
Now, how are you as far as for people booking a trip to come up with you? What kind of lead time do you like to have?
Right now I'd be looking at September, October.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. How long have you been booked that much? Quite a while?
For a while, yeah. My summertime schedule books up pretty early because it's just going back and forth. You got 3 weeks or so I take out for the Florida stuff. And it just makes a nice rotation for me.
So when you do that, I guess one catches up. Yeah, the other one gets booked up quicker when you're down there, and then down there, and you're up here, that gets booked up quicker.
Yep. Yep.
Well, that's good to hear. Have you got another captain that helps you in both places here and there?
No, I've got captains I work with, but nobody runs my boats for me. I just run what I can.
So you do it yourself.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it. And then you're growing all those first hands there, though. Pretty soon they'll be out there helping you too.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. I'm just hoping we're all still have money to spend in a few years and we're not trying to live out of our gardens. We'll see.
Well, hopefully too that you've got something to drive. You'll probably be walking.
Yeah, unless you buy an electric car that you can't charge. Yeah.
Well, the idea is to have us with a single-eyed dog and a single-shot shotgun, or a one-eyed dog and a single-shot shotgun, and a horse to ride. And that's pretty well about the game plan, I think, the way I see it. So
we'll see how to have a horse anymore.
We'll see how it shakes out.
Yeah.
We'll see how it shakes out, I guess. Well, you got to go home and enjoy some of that great fish on the grill and have a nice campfire. So that sounds like a good evening for you. But give everybody your contact info so they know where you're at, how to get a hold of you. This, by the way, everybody for now, people start hearing these programs on YouTube and all across the board with these programs now. So it's heard everywhere. So give everybody your contact info, my friend.
Yeah, Mike Patterson at MikeSportFishing.com or 419-308-6925.
And your website, with that, do you update that periodically or weekly this time of year? How do you do that?
I do not. I haven't updated my website in 5 or 6 years. It's time for me to actually, most of the stuff I do isn't even on there. I'm pretty old-fashioned about things.
You like phone calls and messages, I think, don't you?
Yeah, shoot me a text, tell me what you want to do, I'll tell you when we can do it. Yeah.
There you go. I think that's a good way to go. I agree with you, my friend. I really do. I still like the old-fashioned way, and that's called a pen and a piece of paper. It worked pretty well for a long time. It still seems to work pretty good, you know?
Yep. That's what I've got my notepads right here in front of me.
Well, enjoy your dinner this evening. Thanks for being on with us. I want to get it up to what's going on both Florida and up on Lake Erie with you. That's why we plan on as we go through the year like we always do. Why don't we get back with you about mid-July or so, get an update, because you're heading south again, towards the end of July. And then we'll get back with you again when we get back up here like mid to end of August. Get ready for this fall bite. Hopefully you get a little ice fishing this year. Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be a change?
That'd be great for a change.
That would really be nice. Thank you, sir. We'll be in touch.
Yep, thanks, Jerry. Take her easy.
You too. Thanks, Mike. Bye-bye. Mike Patterson Sport Fishing. Sydney, we were going to take a break in between with Mike, but I wanted to get him completed there, and we let him go because he was going to head a little bit of grouper on the grill type thing with a big fire, so I didn't want to keep him too much longer, so we let him go. So let's go ahead. Let's take a break now. Let's do that NBA update. Let's do your weather, and then we'll come back, and I'll do a little bit of local fishing real quick before we go this evening. It's Fishing and Hunting today. We'll have more for you right after this.
Well, as he said, this is Fishing and Hunting today, and I'm Sid Davis with your sports update for today and your weather update for today. Not just for here, but from my town to your town to anywhere around. I'm currently right now in the Midwest. We are reaching the high 80s, 86. We're planning to get pretty low into the 60s, mid 60s to be exact, in the Midwest today. And also, to touch on that, we'll get into some world temperatures. If you're in the East Coast right now, before we jump over across the ocean, New York is 75 degrees. And as I said, Midwest 80s. And then as we go down, you get to Hong Kong, 88 degrees. New Orleans, 85 degrees. If you are in Paris, you are pretty much in your 70s. Guatemala City, 72. There's a warm front pretty much coming around. If you're in Nairobi, you're in 80s. Houston, 91. Anchorage, Alaska, 62 degrees. They're kind of a little mild there too. Then also the way this is going, not to keep going on and on and on about it, but switching over into some sports, we're in the playoff brackets now, guys. Hawks lead series 3-2. 76ers lost game 5, 106. Hawks just overpowered them. 106, 109, Hawks up. And they're the 5th seed and they did that. I actually watched some of that game. It was really a sight to see. Now today's game, you have the Bucks going against the Nets. And right now, the series is 3-2. The Nets up. And also in the Western Conference, you have the Jazz against the Clippers. And the Clippers are up 3-2. Jazz just lost that one 111-119. And they're in game 5. So today, the game I will watch you guys today. And the Suns are just sitting back, waiting for, to be determined who they're going to play between the Jazz and the Clippers. Currently, right now, we have the Bucks, the Nets, and the Sixers and the Hawks going back to back, trying to figure out who they're going to be playing, or each other, rather. That's pretty much the sports update, but don't forget tonight, the game 6, the Bucks versus the Nets. You might want to watch that because the bet, 60% chance the Bucks are going to win if you're into the Vegas stakes. And that concludes that. And back to you, Mr. Jerry Cripp.
Thank you, my friend. Good update, NBA and weather with Sydney. So he does a great job with that. Sydney does a great job producing the program. He is the producer for Fishin and Huntin today. And you'll be hearing it in more and more places as the weeks go by here. So get to the point where pretty well that way. Anywhere you can go for podcasts that you go for that, you'll be able to pick up Fishin and Huntin today. That's our goal, is to get it out there to as many places as we can for you, for sure. Again, that was Mike Patterson, Mike Patterson Sport Fishing. We had on with us this evening. And Mike guides, like he had mentioned, also not only on Lake Erie, but also out of Destin, Florida, for the saltwater trips down that way too. Grouper right now, snapper seasons are on. You know what we got up here with walleye? We got a great walleye population up here. Perch, there's beginning to be a little bit of concern about our perch population on Lake Erie. They have already lowered the quota, or the bag limit, if you will, for perch in the Central Basin. I think it's east of Huron Pier, where that bag limit's in effect. There's no change in the bag limit for perch in the Western Basin, but there is some concern about perch in the Western Basin. So something we're going to watch as we go through the upcoming months and see what happens with that. And if you like to catfish, Mike was mentioning too, a great population of channel cats up there in that lake too. And not uncommon to catch some 30-inch fish up there. That's a big cat, no question about that. Largemouth fishing, if you like to bass fish, and if you haven't been up there in the Western Basin to largemouth fish, you need to get that accomplished because it is really, really becoming a hot fishery. There's no question about that. And then the smallies are on a bit of a comeback up there too. There was quite a decline. If you're a smallie fisherman, you know all about it. But back when the gobies were introduced to Lake Erie, they robbed the nests of the smallmouth. In fact, when you would hook a smallmouth, before you could get that fish released, that fish got back to the nest was already raided in a lot of cases. They figured out how to eat these gobies, and that's really, really made a change in that's for sure. So they're on a bit of a comeback. I think right now probably 2.5 pound, maybe we push it by saying a 3 pound would be a good average smallie in the Western Basin. I don't know. We'll see with that average size smallie. But I do believe there's 7 pound plus smallmouth in the Western Basin of Lake Erie. Definitely in the Eastern Basin of Lake Erie. Eastern Basin of Lake Erie for smallmouth fishing is phenomenal. It's the best of the three. But we've got big smallies, I think, here. But to pick an average size smallmouth, which there's nothing wrong with a 2.5, 3 pound smallie, that's for sure. But to pick an average size right now, we'll watch this and maybe make that pick for that average size. as we get into the fall a little bit more, because fall smallmouth fishing on Lake Erie can really be a good time to do that, that's for sure. No reports of algae to any extent yet up on the lake. I did want to ask Mike about that. We did talk about the algae in Florida. Where he's at in the Panhandle of Destin, there's not the algae issue there that has been south of there. And both coasts, there has been some algae issues south of there, but nothing up at the Panhandle. So that's something that you're concerned about, that type of thing. There's nothing to be concerned about with out of Destin, Florida down there. Lake Erie algae, nothing really that we've heard to be of any alarm or concern yet, but we're only in mid-June. So, that we see the real issues with algae on Lake Erie more towards the fall. That's when we really start seeing that. But the eye is kept on it constantly. There's no question about that. So we will pass along any kind of alerts or anything like that we hear. We'll pass that along for sure. And then we will have at some point, Sandy Ben will be with us. She's with Water Keepers. Sandy will be with us. She's with us all the time, giving us updates on water conditions, lake conditions, if you will, as how algae is affecting them. So we'll have her here sometime in the next month or so, probably, get an update from her. We did hear from, as far as Grand Lake, we had Mike Walters on. There is no algae issues of any real major concern up on Grand Lake. So that was good news to hear for sure from him. So we'll keep an eye on Grand Lake too, because I know a lot of people like to crappie fish up on Grand Lake. Anyway, right now, about anywhere you want to go here throughout Ohio, from Lake Erie to the Ohio River, June is a great month to be fishing. It's a good time to be out proper fishing, dry fly fishing. If you've got a fly rod, you know that. Pretty much about every time you have a cast with your fly rod with that little dry fly on it, you're going to catch something. Great for bluegill this time of year. Trophy bluegill, this is the trophy bluegill time of year to fish. June into, really May into June, those 2 months. As long as you've got insect activity going on in the body of water that you're fishing, you're going to have a good chance of catching fish with that dry fly about every time you cast it out there. So once that stops, once that insect activity slows down or stops, that pretty well puts an end to that type of bite. So now's the time to be doing that too. Bass, crappie, all right now you can catch fish throughout the state of Ohio. Got some real good smaller streams in Ohio too. We've got steelhead fishery that'll be turning back on in the fall up on the tributaries of Lake Erie. And like I said, throughout the state you can catch smallmouth, because there anywhere you can find running water, it seems it's going to have some smallmouth in it for sure. So you have state game fish, the smallmouth, no question. But they're here, and it's just a good time of year to be fishing for sure. So get out and enjoy that, and have a good time doing it, that's for sure. Also, coming to some of the shows upcoming that we've got coming up for you too. Steve Quinn will be with us next Thursday. Steve is within Fishermen, still very active, produces a lot of their TV stuff. And he'll be with us. We'll talk with Steve. The theme will be with Steve, summertime bass. Get some tips from him how to catch some summertime bass. Week after that, Thursday after 2 weeks from today, will be Kevin Kale. Kevin Kale's the hatcheries administrator for the state of Ohio. Kevin's getting ready to retire, I think, about in August, so we wanted to get him in here. Talk a little bit about the world-class hatcheries we have here in Ohio. And these are hatcheries where other divisions of wildlife come to see and study. That's how good we do. We produce 40 million plus game fish here in Ohio to release for stocking programs throughout the state. So Kevin will be with us. I think that'll be on July 1st, if I'm not mistaken. And then the Thursday after that, we've got Jared Wickland will be with us from Pheasants Forever. Talk with him about nesting for the summer with our pheasants and other game birds here, not only in Ohio, but in the Midwest. and a little bit on the effect of the virus with the conservation groups and how they are surviving throughout this pandemic. We'll have them with us. That'll be 3 weeks from today, we'll have Jared with us. So that's our lineup for the next few weeks. I hope you enjoy the show. If you do, get people that enjoy hunting and fishing, tell them to tune us in. We're here every Thursday with a new program. We'll continue to do that. At some point in time, we may even expand it to more than an hour program. We'll see. But we're here every Thursday for you. Till then, till the next time, get out and enjoy the outdoors. Happy Father's Day, too, to everybody. And we'll see you next time. So long.